Hey. Welcome to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman. I'm fascinated with many things, including monster cookies and also speaking to groups about I guess not speaking coherently right now, but I'm fascinated with speaking to groups about perseverance and specifically about identifying when we're kind of in a crisis mindset and and then thinking of ways to move through that. I'm still formulating that as a lot of us are with a lot of things. Anyway, that was a shaky introduction. I have to say, hey, I'm Jason Freeman. I'm a professional speaker and I'm all over the place. But I'm owning being all over the place and I'm not always all over the place. So it's just today and then some other times. But anyway, the reason we are here is each week I get to interview an incredible person, and this week I'm interviewing Oelker, who just has the most amazing story and the most amazing perspective. And by the way, this is episode 75, and I was born in 1975, and someday I will be 75. So without further ado.
Today's guest, Oelker.
Hey, welcome back. Let me tell you a little bit about Kat. Kat Oelker is a personal power coach who helps her clients uncover the personal power by uprooting the inherited mindsets designed to keep them hidden. Her coaching practice focuses on the power of thoughts, feelings, and habits. In session, Kat helps her clients feel it all, explore what that means, and take action steps to discover the unique personal power while moving away from what robbed them of it. Trauma, patriarchy, and boundaries are also explored and addressed. Kat Oelker is a staunch advocate for social justice issues, honest conversation, messy humanness. I love that. Because humanness is sometimes messy, like my intro was. Coffee and delicious foods. She is host of Deepened Roots Podcast. Without further ado, please welcome Kat Oelker. And the crowd goes wild.
Hey, oh my gosh, Jason. How are you, my friend?
I'm really good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I just want to say that I love that you said I'm all over the place, and I'm owning the fact that I'm all over the place. I gave you cheer hands all over the place.
I saw them. Thank you.
Like you're driving by the tax guy, and like he has the blow up man, and he's like,
which is great because it gives us a more fun impression of taxes.
yes, they know what they're doing.
So just before the show you mentioned the deepened roots. That phrase, I know it's the name of your business, but it means a lot to you. Tell me about what it means to you.
Deepened Roots is a sense of being. It's deepening your roots. When you are in a place where your roots are deepened, you are firmly rooted in the ground. And yes, you're going to have branches that are going to flail all over the place at times, but you will always be in the ground as long as you take time to hold yourself rooted in the ground. And it means so much to me because that is the human experience. That is something we, many of us have more privilege than others of having, but we all have that right. We all have the right. So for some, it just seems to come naturally, and others, it not so much. And all of that is valid, right? But we all have that right to be deeply rooted within ourselves. Yeah.
So when we feel ourselves flailing and on the edges of the limbs and leaves falling, what are some ways we can remember and feel into our roots?
The most important aspect is awareness. Being aware that you are flailing in the wind. And then the next important aspect is perspective. What do you think about flailing in the wind? Does it bring up shame? Does it bring up anger? And anger is always a sub-emotion. Anger is more like, do you feel betrayed? Do you feel abandonment? Do you feel resentment? Do you feel hopeless? Right? So, and another aspect is, when you feel all those things, do you try to bury it and pretend it doesn't exist because you're going to keep flailing? If so, or are you going to take time to identify that? And then another perspective is once you've recognized that, and then you realize, like, well, this is hilarious. Here we are again. Here we are again.
Here we are again.
Here we are again. Sometimes it's like that switch, right? Where you're like, okay, this used to really piss me off. And now I'm just like, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? Right. So that's the switch between survival flailing in the wind versus I see that we're flailing in the wind, and what is the action plan? And sometimes it is like, well, I'm going to be flailing in the wind. I'm going to give in to it, because if I resist it, my branches are going to fall off. They're going to break. But if I just lean into the wind and just let it happen until it dies down, then I give myself time for recovery, And so that's an important aspect while in the survival state, right? And then if you're in the terms of, or in the thriving state, it is just more like, well, these are my tools and this is what I'm doing, and that's fine. This is the wind happens. The wind appears. The wind exists. It is a part of my life. So, and it's important to know that we all go through all of this, and to not beat yourself up when shame does crop up, or any emotion that we deem negative.
One of the traps I fallen into at the points in my life where I felt the lowest is when I've been flailing. I've been worried that I would always be flailing. That would be my the rest of my life. And can you talk a little about having confidence that the flailing will give way to something else eventually? Does that make sense?
So, Jason, from our time together talking and getting to know what I do know of you, you are pure exemplification of letting the wind happen. And I mean that in the most beautiful way, because I can only imagine how, when you were describing how you felt like you would never get out of that wind, to me, that sounds like you had a lot of emotions around hopelessness and perhaps helplessness. And, you know, I can't, like, I give up. Like, what am I even doing? What is going on? You know? And so for you to work through that, and I'm sure some days are much better than others, you've developed tools where when your body and your you know, thought to speaking just gives out because it just happens, right? You're just like, so I'm owning this today. How amazing is that you have those tools, right? Where maybe you didn't when you were younger.
Yeah, it's utterly transformative to have the tools and understand how to use them when I need them.
Yeah.
Utterly transformative.
Yes. And so
So
knowing that there are these tools that you can learn and apply. They don't always apply all the time, but maybe one does versus another, and you get to figure that out for yourself. And nobody gets to tell you which tools work for you. You get to tell yourself which tools work for you. And that's a sense of self-honoring. When we honor ourselves, that's when we put the power back where that hopelessness kind of takes.
So is it fair to say that we can find tools and practice tools that can calm the wind in our lives?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it is harder than other times. And maybe the tools are a good support system, and maybe you don't have a good support system. And so that can feel incredibly defeating, right? Part of going through your healing journey is acknowledging your super lows and knowing that you deserve to work your way through it. And it's okay to feel hopeless. And at the same time, you are enough. So many of us don't know we're enough. And it comes out in perfectionism. It comes out in making deadlines to a T and being overachievers. It comes out in the form of people pleasing, right? All this is not enoughness. But if we simply, even if we don't believe it, say, well, I'm enough for myself right now. You know, or if you find yourself saying, I'm not enough, then the best question in that instance is why? And who told you that? You know, a lot of what we believe is not our own. It's not our original thought. It's what's been told to us through society, through our families, who were told the things that they were told when through their families and society. So rooting through that, combing through that, and like, I need to get myself out of this, but I also need tools, and I don't know where to get them, but I need someone to help me, or I need to figure this out, right? Like, being able to ask for what you need is super important as well. A lot of us don't do that. And a lot of us do that, or sometimes people do that in order to not answer for themselves. Like, someone will tell me what's best for me, but ultimately you know what's best for you. So getting those tools, whatever they are, whether it's deep breathing, journaling, Googling online, having an online support system or community, right? Something, just a safe space, feeling safe. Ultimately, your tools need to make you feel safe, being you and being in your space and your body and your mind and your soul. That's incredibly important.
So well said. So well said. So what's the difference between using a tool to calm the metaphorical winds and using a tool to repress and not deal with the whatever the thing that feels not good?
Yeah, I mean, a good example is, I guess, if you want to go back to support system, you call up your grandma or that one aunt who always supports you regardless. She doesn't understand anything about you other than she loves you. So she will always be in your corner, right? And you call her up and she's like, well, la la la, and she tells you, that you are enough, and take a walk, and she loves you. Right? That's a good starter. And then a tool that people often go to with good intentions of helping is just venting to their friends who also have problems that they vent about. And then nothing gets accomplished. So then you're just all stewing in your own shit, not doing anything about it. That's something that just kind of like covers up the real you and covers up your personal power. Another an example that involves just you solely is, really figuring out what you're like when you're stressed or when you're really anxious. Let's say you have really bad anxiety, and instead of doing deep breathing work or journaling about it or going for a walk or whatever, listening to a song that makes you calm, you go and you drink, you go and you down 4 shots of Jameson.
Oh, you
right?
eat 5 monster cookies in a thing.
Yeah.
Actually,
yeah,
I've
4
never
shots of
done that,
Jameson
but
and monster cookies sounds like a way to really suppress things, right? And so, but or even the whole glamorized notion of, oh my gosh, life is so stressful. I'm going to get my girlfriends and we're all going to drink a bottle of wine each, like that's glorified in society, especially around COVID. But so many people have realized that due to COVID, they have covered up their anxiety of not being with their friends by drinking a lot, instead of really going on and being like, what am I anxious about? And how can I make myself less anxious? How can I feel safe in my mind and my body as they're both just doing gymnastics,
They're both doing gymnastics.
Yeah.
I'm
Now,
so
Jason, we talked about this though. Monster cookies are amazing, but if you use that because you're anxious versus, oh my gosh, I love monster cookies, I'm going to have one right now, that's different. So I still advocate for you to eat monster cookies.
thanks for being my monster cookie advocate.
You're very
It's good to have a
welcome.
monster cookie advocate. I so appreciate that. That warms my heart. And it can be so subtle how we distract ourselves sometimes. Like last night or yesterday, I went to a networking event. The first one I have been to in two years because of the
Yeah.
pandemic, and it was
Mhm.
loud, and I was talking to all sorts of people. And when I got home, I didn't want to deal with the feelings, so I watched a bunch of stuff on YouTube and click, 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 click. And, and I noticed I was doing it, but it's so easy to get into that covering up the thing rather than letting it speak, and so it can have room and breathe. It's so easy.
I love that you have awareness around that and that you still were like, but I'm clicking because my brain's on fire.
Yeah, I had awareness, but I still click.
And that's okay. I mean, that it happens to the best of us because that would make anyone anxious. Like, hey, I haven't really been around people in 2 years, and here I am around people. And while I love it, I just too much peopling. And so now my brain's on fire, my body's responding to it being on fire, and my response is click, 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 right?
Click, click,
And
click.
so it's kind of like computer programming when you're like, well, when this happens, this happens. So it's a matter of, well, what do I want to happen? When this happens, what do I want to happen? Like when I come home and I get like anxious, like I told you lately, like I've just been having dance parties. Like I would just, move and like shake things out, and I probably look like I am doing some crazy black magic ritual in my kitchen, which is completely fine. It's physically just getting it all out. And then I'm like, well, that was a lot of work. I'm thirsty. I'm going to drink some water.
Wow. So instead of going down a road of either clicking or doing something else to cover up you're having dancing, which sounds fun, which is exercise, which causes thirst, which invites you to drink water, and so like you get on this whole other path towards where you want to go instead of places that might be click, 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 but
Uh-huh.
unespecially where you want to go.
Yeah, and it's contagious too, because you're like, wow, I'm so proud of myself. I'm gonna drink more water. I'm a little hungry too. I have some apple and yogurt and some chocolate chips. So I'm just gonna have a little snack right now. Like it's just versus how many times can we or do we, we're like, oh my gosh, it's been just a rough day. I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to stare at a wall and I'm going to like shove food in my mouth, or I'm just going to drink a beverage that isn't good for me in copious quantities or copious amounts of quantities. So, Yeah.
So we can really, like, when something happens that sounds like there's like different paths we can go down in response to that thing.
Different programming. Like, oh my gosh, that get together last night. So many damn people. I'm gonna go in my kitchen.
Like
Oh,
60 or
monster.
90.
Oh my
And there's
gosh.
music, so people are yelling to be heard above the music, and oh my gosh. Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Yeah.
Sensory overload.
I mean, really fun, but sensory overload for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So it's like, you coming home and like, oh, monster cookie. I really survived that. I'm so proud of myself. I survived that like atrociously fun yet atrociously like scary ordeal. I'm gonna eat a monster cookie. I'm gonna shake my feelings off and I'm gonna dance or something. Whatever. Do something fun for yourself so that you kind of reward your anxiety with something fun versus something that makes you more anxious.
You reward your. I mean, first of all, observing the event was atrociously fun, but at the same time atrociously overwhelming. And then rewarding the anxiety with something fun and productive. Oh, powerful stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I try. Every once in a while, I get good gems out there, Jason. So do you.
You get a lot of good gems out there. Like every time I hear you, you're doing good gems.
Well, thank you. Just learning from the best.
Oh.
Really, guys, though, I mean, you know this man. He's like, hey, so I'm going to totally wreck my introduction and in a way that I felt was wrecking it. But I was sitting in the green room and I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic.
Awesome.
This is Jason. And and then just owning it. And then we just get to talk to each other. Like, yeah, I'll schedule podcasts just so we have conversations. I'm all for it. You're always dropping gems and perspectives and you exude so much love and compassion. It's like, yeah, cool. Let me drop some gems as well.
And
Yeah.
so it's a gem dropping fest.
Like, there you go. Hey, Familia. Hey, Alexandria. Alexandria is a beautiful woman on the inside and out. Very smart, very compassionate, just loves people. And she's a really great supporter of showing up with Tim Sones. So shout out to Alexandria. Thank you so much for showing up here.
Shout out to Alexandria. So switching gears slightly, I came up with this question beforehand, and I was so pleased with myself. I hope you like it.
Yes, let's hear it.
What are the top 3 things in your life that have made you feel less free to be you? I mean, like historically, what happened? Top 3 of the top things. They just a few things, or however you want to answer that.
That have made me what?
What are a few of the top things that have made you feel less free to be you?
Oh, so Okay, so this is going to get deep unintentionally, guys, but those who have listened to or watched Deepened Roots podcast and have been on Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, especially during episode 3 where I shared my story. Growing up, I didn't know what being me meant. Being me meant being small, being silent, being out of the way. It meant that, there was this devastation in the family, and it was called cancer. And it gave my mom a sense of, I need to achieve so many things because I may die tomorrow, even after she was in remission for many years, right? And so I didn't know what me meant or being me meant. And when I did express it, especially in high school, it was met with disapproval, which when you're a teenager, you always feel like everyone's disapproving of you anyways. That's normal. I'm not I'm not making it more than teenagers automatically are I just want to be me, but I was kind of this hippie kid, kind of into soul music and boy bands and just weird. And kids in my class didn't understand. The only one who understood was my dad, because he's kind of the same way he was. And but that was a huge period of time where I didn't really feel like it could be me. And also going through in my 20s, the stock market crash of 08, I was laid off like a lot of other people, and I was finding out that teaching wasn't the thing that I wanted to do, but it was kind of something, but it wasn't exactly. After all my years of schooling, that wasn't what I wanted to do. And being but this is what I want to do more in business. And then being told, well, your education doesn't matter. So in my mind, all my hard work didn't matter. And then I was fine, I'll show you that I matter, because I do. Jerk. I do. And I went and got another degree in business, and then just kept working. Another instance, I guess, is, I love LinkedIn, guys. I love LinkedIn. And there are pods and groups where, you're fully accepted, kind of accepted, but people are still kind of I don't know, and then not accepted. And so it is kind of when I first started, I'm not the only one who felt this way, but when I first started, when the pandemic first happened, I was having a hard time finding my footing, I guess. And so I just had to be but I'll find it. The people who I resonate with, they'll be there, they'll understand. So just being able to look at that and being but it's going to work out. That is so important. So many times, and I've felt this way included in my life. Oh, I just need that one person to understand. And I've learned over the years that I just have to understand. That's all that matters. I just have to understand me. And then it'll just all make sense to me. And then I'm able to do what I need to do. And then other people around me will either understand and support me, or they won't. And I can't control what they do. So, but knowing that you will feel lesser than yourself sometimes, or that you're not accepted, that's really a reflection of other people and not you. You just have to keep going and keep being you, even if you don't quite understand that. I mean, how even when I first started, when I first came out as bisexual, like I firmly came out. And people are still like, well, why are you declaring that? Like, that's weird. Like, well, because it exists. And I went most of my life not realizing or understanding what that meant. So if I can help someone understand what that means to them so that they can identify and then just be themselves, it doesn't even have to do, it doesn't have a lot to do with sexuality either. It literally is just an identity. It's not just, but it is an identity. And just allowing people to see, like, hey, but this is an identity. This is my identity. Like, you're helping other people being like, this is my identity too. And this is what it means to me. So just staying true to yourself is so important. And it's so hard too, Jason. I mean, isn't it? It's so hard. You're just like, but I mean, it just seems so much easier to be normal or normal. But the normal, sometimes what's normal is just it's so not you. So you might as well just be awkwardly awesome.
Yeah. I mean, there's many occasions where I wanted the voice to be normal, and I've been over the coordination differences, and I just wanted it to be like everyone else, but then I would miss the switchness that I am.
I mean, Jason, there have been times where you're just kind of on a roll with just being authentically you, and then you'll say, do I still have a speech impediment? Because I forgot. I don't hear it. I think that's amazing. Like, go you, yeah. Find that.
So what would you tell like a teenager, high school student struggling with being themselves and feeling different and yeah.
Well, it is kind of hard right now too because of the, I guess, the climate that has unfortunately become political. You know, I grew up being bisexual and I didn't know it. I didn't know what that meant. In high school, I wasn't interested in the boys in my class, but I was interested in boys. But I was interested in the girls in my class. I didn't know what that meant. So I was called like the class lesbian the entire time I was in high school. But that wasn't really accurate. Like, I didn't date anybody. I didn't date anyone because I'm like, well, I'm not a lesbian. I just don't like the boys in my class or my school. And, you know, but unfortunately, like, representation and seeing that is so important. Like, seeing that exemplified and, you know, just with legislation being passed, there have been 3 bills in the last 3 weeks that have pretty much, you know, admonished the LGBTQIA plus community, where it's like in Florida, you can't even say gay, like gay. Like, okay. Having that in school probably would have helped me find myself a little more, because in my family, you know, you just didn't talk about that. My mom's best friend was gay. Like, and I grew up with that, but I didn't grow up feeling that I could be gay or that I could be queer or that I could be bisexual. You know, like, I identify as queer and bisexual. I didn't know that that was something I could do growing up, you know. So whatever you're feeling inside, give yourself permission to know that you're not wrong, and, safely look for examples of that. Don't look for that to save you, as in, this group or these people or whatever, they need to save me from my situation. It's more like, where can I draw inspiration? Let's say, you really love to wear colors, like colors all the time. And, like people around you just are like, well, that's weird. Why don't you just wear normal clothes that are just neutral colors, or, bold top, but not everything has to be bold. Like, no, so maybe you'll look on Instagram or, something where people are dressing, like Pinterest, where people are dressing in bold colors, and then you just, or maybe you're an artist and you just use bold colors, like just being okay with expressing yourself. And it may not be appreciated by others, but it's your right as a human being to be able to express yourself.
The internet has many challenges, and social media does, but like you're pointing out, there's also a real liberating aspect. When we feel so unique that we can just find someone on Pinterest that wears bright colors and draw inspiration and ideas from them, and that freedom's a great thing.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you have to find that person on Instagram who wears those outfits and idolize them. It just means like, hey, I see you. I like those. I like your outfits. Thank you. Like, you are worthy, and you get to decide what that looks like. You get to decide to like how you're going to show your worth.
Powerful.
Yeah. And like, unfortunately, society is like, well, show your worth by being a people pleaser, being a perfectionist, being closeted, being meek. You can have opinions, but they can't be too strong. Like, that's not, or you can be polite, but not too polite. Like, no, that's not expression. That's retraction. That is dampening of the human spirit.
A similar, but very different question. What would you tell like a 7 or 8-year-old who's one of his or her parents has cancer? What would you tell them about being in that family? Yeah.
I mean, that's hard because children are so impressionable, right? But children, especially, need love all the time. And when your family is going through something so devastating, sometimes you just forget to show that love, right? So like just saying you are loved and it's going to be okay. Like whatever the outcome is, you are loved and you get to express love and you get to have love from your parents. And, that's important. Just you are loved and you are safe. Like regardless, you are okay. You're safe. You're going to be okay.
You're safe. You're safe.
Yeah.
You're loved and safe.
Mm-hmm.
You are loved and safe. What a good message for not just kids, but for anybody. You are loved and you are safe.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think especially the pandemic has made us feel detached from that. Our safety has been compromised because life is not the same as we once knew it. It's
Mm,
different. Um, and also, um, like you haven't been able to connect and love like you have. Everyone's dealing with their own trauma, their own
mm,
stuff. And so it's hard to connect. So in translation, people are like, I can't find the love, right? I'm
mm,
so disconnected from
mm,
people. But starting with connection with yourself and being honest about that, you'll be able to connect with others. And I can say that because I've been doing that for myself. You know, I've noticed. I noticed a few months ago, I unintentionally just kind of like retracted a little bit. I was around some people for the first time in a while, and I just unintentional retraction and just like letting it in and being like, I'm safe and I'm loved. These people love me and I love them back. I'm okay. It's being able to allow yourself to express and love again and connect again.
wow. Yeah, and it's an adjustment, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I
I
mean,
mean, yeah, so much so that like it's very much YouTube and Netflix clicking where you're just like, my brain's
mm,
on
mm,
fire. Ah.
mm. But to like honor that stress, but yet realize, hey, I if you like being around people, realize that hey, I enjoy this, and then also tap back into the rooted part of yourself as you go forth and courageously try new things.
Yes. Like I am safe. I have, um I am safe within myself and my surroundings. I am in
Mm,
charge of my decisions. I am in charge of, you know, um, who gets to be around my physical space and my mental space. Um, I get to determine that.
And I can choose whether I want to dance or whether I want to click.
Yeah, and know that those are going to produce different outcomes. And
Mm,
which
mm.
outcomes do you want in your life?
And another question I really want to ask you.
Mhm.
I mean, you can answer more generally if you want, but how can trauma blind someone to their personal power?
Yeah. So you and I talked about this earlier, and I appreciate you welcoming the topic with open arms, first of all. So that is very awesome of you and very important as well. But, I have talked about since last week that, my decision of no longer being on showing up perspectives on cancer. And it has everything to do with the fact that um, I started the show with Tim, wanting him to be the front runner because it's his project, it's his baby, and I wanted him to be able to tell the story as boldly and as beautiful as it needed to be. And it ended up bringing up more trauma than I was prepared to deal with emotionally. And I had to be honest with myself. Because at first I wasn't for sure. I'm like, I'm managing it, it's fine. And then I found myself physically and emotionally being, it was almost like I was just being attacked by a bear or something, and not feeling safe. And it was a decision that I had to make, and realizing that it brought up a lot of complex PTSD that I have not managed as well as I knew to. Like, I didn't recognize the signs. You know, it was one of those unintentional emotional stoppings. Like, no, but I was high off of the good deeds, the good vibes that were going on, right? And so being aware of that and understanding that there was trauma that was brought up, it was such a beautiful gift, to be honest. You know, I was able to talk about something that I never really talked about the way I did on showing up. And I was able to provide perspective, not only for Tom and his life and his journey, but for others as well. And especially those who had gone through similar situations, which I didn't realize existed. I thought I was just all alone in it. I knew I wasn't, but I hadn't really met anyone like me, you know? And so, knowing that I had to take time out for me, and, you know, like I said earlier, like after this interview, Jason, I will probably be behind the curtain as Oz, you know, being supporter, but taking time for myself, you know, getting the treatment, getting more tools for me that I need, deepening my personal power. And I think that is a true testament of my personal power to recognize that, you know, and setting those boundaries and saying, no, but when I say that after this, I'm taking time, like I am taking time, right? And it's important to honor ourselves with that. So when you're going through just hardships and you're dealing with something as serious as trauma being brought up, right? Like that is your first priority. Everything else has to wait. You know, people can say, oh, but I have to work, I have to pay the bills. Totally get it. Yes, totally get it. You know, you can still go to work, but in the morning when you go out of bed and your body's out of, like, literally on fire, give yourself time to utterly freak the hell out. Freak out. Tell yourself you're safe in the process, and then do what you need to do, and create those tools throughout the day. Use those tools throughout the day as you feel things being brought up. You know, also having a support system around you. You know, if you're able to at work, let someone know, whether it's HR. If you have an official diagnosis, give them the paperwork so that they have no choice but to support you. You know, if you do have a good boss, let them know, or a coworker, friend, you know, anyone who can help you be like, okay, nope, you're taking 5 minutes, go. You know, that's super important. But just because you have obligations to yourself, or obligations to the world, it doesn't mean that you can't honor obligations to yourself.
Just because you have
Yeah.
obligations to the world doesn't mean you can't honor obligations to yourself.
Yes. I don't know. I just did a dance because you did, and I thought we were dancing. I'm sorry.
And I'm dancing because it's so profound, and I would drop my mic, except it's expensive, so I'm not going to
Yeah, don't do
drop it.
it.
But just because you have obligations to the world doesn't mean you can honor obligations to yourself.
Yeah.
And it gets confusing, doesn't it? When like not only the tough things trigger us, but sometimes good. I mean, good things, quote unquote, trigger us. Like the chamber event last night. It's a really good thing. Being on a show with Tim and helping so many people. It's a really good thing, but at the same time, being aware of when these good things in life trigger us, and not trying to minimize that, like
Yeah.
not saying, "Oh, I'm at Disney World, I should be all happy," but I'm really triggered right now, not trying to eliminate what we're actually feeling about what's happening. Does
Hmm.
that make sense?
Totally. And it just means that sometimes you need to remove yourself so that you can reposition yourself. You know? Like, okay, great. You went to an event last night. That's so awesome. Next time you go to an event, you get to choose whether it's virtual or a smaller event outside
Mm.
where people aren't crowded around you, right? Like you get to choose that. For me, like I will
Mm.
always support Tam and I will always support showing up. And I did last night in my own way, right? But I got to reposition myself. I got to do it in a way where I talked about Steve Sullivan's perspective around his journey, not really talking about his journey. And we also got to dance and talk about cancer and intimacy, which is actually a huge thing with those who are in relationships or marriage and going through cancer. So I was like, Steve, I wasn't planning on talking about sex with you on the air, but like I'm so honored. Right? Like so like you get to remove yourself from things that overwhelm you and reposition, and you still are a valid part of whatever is going on. You just maybe play a different role, or you support differently, but you're still you. And if anything, you're even more you, because you're like, hey, I'm Jason Freeman and I'm at a smaller event now and you get to stay over there. And I'm so happy. I'm eating my monster cookies and I'm so happy, right? Versus I'm at a huge event and people terrify me. Get away. Stay over there.
There's so much to what you're saying, and we need to wrap up. But there's so much. Could we go like for five or 10 more minutes?
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Okay. You have the time.
I do. I wasn't for sure yesterday because I didn't know what day it was, but now I do.
Awesome. So you're talking about repositioning, and sometimes it's just saying no. The thing doesn't work for me. Like just there's some things like that. Like I imagine if I smoked a cigarette, which I never had before, I would instantly reposition and say, no, I'm never going to do that again, just because I imagine it would be an awful experience. But in other cases, like you notice like, hey, I don't want to talk to someone about the intensity of the cancer story, and I can say yes to talking to Steve about his general perspective on his journey and about intimacy
Mm-hmm.
that he's experienced. So you're positioned in a way where you could say yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how many of us take on roles because our perfectionist, our ego mentality, which by the way, all of us have the ego. It's not like ego as a narcissism, but ego as in emotions in the forefront, ruling your wounded voice, telling you, I have to do this because I am not a quitter. Well, no, just showing up in a different way means that you still showed up, and you were able to show up in a way that fully enhanced you. Maybe things had to scramble a little bit for that to happen, but it still happened. And like it was more of a full experience because of it. You know, you were able to give yourself, give your all to it versus, oh my gosh, I'm so traumatized. I'm just going to like literally freak out.
So you interviewed Steve earlier today, right?
Yeah, it was like midnight to 2 p.m. It's on my page.
So way earlier today. Way
Yeah.
earlier.
As in kind of last night, it was fun.
But
We danced and everything.
how did you feel within yourself after that interview?
Pretty good, you know, and Steve and I raised $300 in the twilight hours. We raised about $300.
That's
Like, it was so
crazy.
much
In the
fun.
middle of the
Yeah.
night, you raised three. In the middle of the night, you raised $300. What the heck?
We're like, who wants song requests? And people were just like, I'll pay this much money if this song is on. And I'm like, done, give me your money, you know? And like, it was so much fun. Oh my gosh. By the way, guys, LLS, I'm doing a plug, Jason. LLS is Leukemia Lymphoma Society. There's this thing called Man and Woman of the Year. Tim Stone he is a candidate for Man of the Year. His goal is $50,000 by May 18th. Right now, he has a little bit of less than around $5,000. So we have a long way to go. But we're doing a 24-hour virtual event that wraps up at 6 p.m.
What's the quickest way I can find that link?
So if you click on, if you type in, what's it called? Donations. Hold on, I will type it into the chat, and then you can put donations.perspectivesoncancer.com. Then you can just simply donate. That's where you can donate. And then there's a list of who's doing a show when. So I don't know exactly. Oh, so Jason, the finale is actually happening right now. So I imagine if you click on Tim.perspectivesoncancer.com. Hold on.
Oh, so not that one.
Yeah, I imagine you could go to his live show, but I'm not for sure. But you can pretty much go on donations.perspectivesoncancer.com. You can donate there. $5, $10, whatever. $25 gets means that you've donated enough money for printed information like pamphlets to be available to families. So, leukemia, lymphoma, myeloma, those are very, sorry, my animals. They're very complicated, serious, life-threatening, deadly cancers. And there's so much information regarding even the different types of leukemias, right? So donating $25 even gets you printed information to families. $35 gets someone going through cancer to and from a treatment center. So like your money, $200 gets a class developed, or not a class, but a support group developed for people in your area. Like it's huge. It's amazing, right? So definitely donate. The last leg of the show is going on right now of the fundraiser. It's going on right now. And I'm sure if you go on LinkedIn, you'll find it. Search for Tim Sohn and you'll find him. So he's doing such an amazing job. I'm so proud of him, and
how do you spell Sohn?
I'm Tim there. Sohn.
Yeah, I mean, I knew, but I want everyone to know.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, any last thoughts on saying yes to living an authentic life in a way that doesn't trigger old wounds?
Well, I
Does that
mean,
make
even
sense?
if you are triggered, that just means that that's an opportunity for healing and growth. So allow all of it in, and know what serves you. Like, hey, I feel like I'm hit with a ton of bricks today. I'm gonna take it easy. I'm going to kind of hang out alone and journal. I'm going to watch my favorite movie that makes me laugh. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to fix my favorite cup of coffee, whatever, right? Being kind to yourself. So even when things are like uncomfortable, just being kind to yourself and knowing that you're safe in that, like, that's just so important. It strengthens our personal power. It makes us rooted in ourselves. It allows us to know ourselves more. The more that we can be aware of our feelings. If you notice that you have to somehow be a perfectionist or people pleaser, that's not you. That's expectations. What do you look like? Focus on that always. And helping others doesn't always mean people pleasing. It just means helping others. Learning the difference is everything as well. So just know that the human experience is messy, but the more you're kind to yourself around this messy experience, the more in your personal power you are, and the more you're just in flow with it, even when you are triggered. So.
Well, thanks so much. I mean, what you talk about is subjects that are so important to us all, but that we often don't talk about. And thanks for not only giving voice to them, but tools to use to approach these subjects in a new way.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me, Jason. I appreciate you so much.
Lastly, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, again, to be honest, I will be in the background a little bit, but you can get in touch with me via LinkedIn. Kara Oelker, you can search for me. You can connect. We can connect. Here, in case. There you go. And I'm currently rebuilding my website too, so it's down. But LinkedIn and then Instagram under Deepened Roots. Yeah, you can get a hold of me those two ways.
So LinkedIn, Kat Oelker.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, not bad. I'm at 50 banners. I have to erase some banners. So LinkedIn. Oh, and then I need to click on it.
There you
Get
go.
LinkedIn, Kat
Oh, yeah.
Oelker, and Instagram, Deepened Roots.
Mm-hmm.
And people know how to spell that, but we might as well put it up too. Which we need to erase one. Oh gosh, that's such a mess.
Jason, you're doing so awesome. Isn't he awesome, guys? He's pretty amazing.
Deepened Roots.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for just being a beautiful human and allowing me to see that always. So thank you.
If I could make a heart, I would make a heart now. Kind
It's
of.
like a hot pocket.
Haha, fuck it. Have a great day in Ohio.
You too.
I just love doing the Awkwardly Awesome podcast, having great conversations that go beyond the surface. It's so healing. We learn more about each other's brilliance as well as our challenges. So I encourage you to have nice conversations and ask questions that expand your knowledge of someone, and ask them to tell a story that they love to tell, and all that. And thanks for your time watching this, and see you with a new episode next week. And I should have had this cued as I said next week, but I didn't, so the timing's off. Deal with it, okay? Thanks. Love you, appreciate you.